morning's Business Insight, Agenda 360. In 2009, Agenda 360, backed by the Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber, set specific goals to make our region more competitive. Agenda 360 was created over nearly 2 years with the help of more than 7,000 people. Its three main goals are to create 200,000 net new jobs by 2020, have 150,000 additional 20 to 34-year-olds in the region's workforce, and ensure that 90% of the labor force is gainfully employed. 2 years after the action plan was implemented, statistics show we have lost ground on every major goal. Greater Cincinnati has lost 61,800 jobs. We have 20,000 fewer young professionals, and a growing number of local residents are too poor to support themselves and their families. Well, despite the gloomy statistics, local civic and business leaders predict a brighter future. The Agenda 360 plan was aggressive when it was established in 2009, but the business and civic leaders behind it had no idea just how bad the economy would get. Mary Stagaman is the executive director of Agenda 360 and joins Business Courier publisher Jamie Smith with more.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
So despite the economic situation of 2009 and even in 2010, Agenda 360 has decided to stay with these very optimistic goals. Why did you decide to do that?
Two reasons, I think. One is that from the very beginning, we had tremendous community support for the work that we were doing and the goals that we set. So to dial them back at this point, and in 2012, when we have a 2020 timeline, seems premature to me and to all the partners that we work with. We think that we've gotten through the worst of the economic downturn. There are some signs of life here, that things are turning around, so that also gives us hope that we can eventually reach those very ambitious goals.
Good, it makes sense. Well, tell me a little bit about the region's political and corporate leaders. I mean, we have some pretty big power players that are in this game.
You know, when we look at the city historically, I think, and in this region in general, we've always had strong leadership, but I really do believe that at this point in our history, we've never had a stronger bench. You look at the corporate leadership, you look at the great work that people like Bob McDonald from Procter and Jim Anderson, who ran children so successfully for so many years, are doing right now to help us figure out how do we generate more innovation in this region? How do we draw more new young companies and entrepreneurs to Greater Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky? The corporate strength is phenomenal. And then we look at the civic sphere, and we look at the kind of leadership we have at organizations like the Greater Cincinnati Foundation and United Way and others. And when you bring all that together, you end up with a tremendous coterie of leaders, all of whom are tremendously committed to making us a better region.
Right. And I think in anything, they are such, those names, the names alone of McDonald and Jim Anderson, I mean, they bring so much power with them that I think that's going to bring a lot of other people that want to get on board as well.
Well, I think that's absolutely right, Jamie. And in fact, it would be disrespectful for us not to talk about the fact that those are the bold-faced names, but the work of Agenda 360, the work of our partners, Vision 2015 in Northern Kentucky, the United Way, again, is a major partner of ours, but also many, many other organizations throughout the community. All of those people who are leading those organizations and the people who are in the trenches, they're all working to change the story here, and for that, we're really, really grateful.
Well, I think the key right there is partnership. I mean, there are so many partnerships involved, and it's not just one organization going against 3 or 4 other organizations over here, so I appreciate that cooperation. Tell me a little bit more about addressing these 3 specific goals, specifically with job growth. I know they're talking a lot about industry clusters. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'm delighted because I'm certainly not a job growth expert, but I sit just down the row from our folks at the Partnership for Greater Cincinnati, which is also part of the Chamber, and they have fully embraced those ambitious job goals in Agenda 360, and they've also developed a new strategy for tackling economic development here in our region that focuses on industry clusters where we already have strength or where we know that we have huge potential for growth. And by doing that, we expect to grow more companies that are already here, attract new companies to the region, and again, bring in those entrepreneurs who will start those young companies that are the primary source of new jobs.
Well, don't you think that goal also helps with the next one about attracting young professionals? I mean, the more you get into innovation and technology, it just seems like that's the reason people leave here. You know, they want to go find those jobs.
You know, it's funny you say that because we're actually working to figure out why do people leave. But because we know that some of them do, but you know what happens? They come back.
Yeah.
We call them boomerangs.
Yeah.
And we think that what we've learned in the last year is that many of our homegrown young professionals love this region. They love it.
Yeah.
And they know that they will be back. So maybe we need to let them fly away for a little bit before they can fully appreciate what this region has to offer them over a lifetime. But you're absolutely right that entrepreneurial efforts are a major source of attraction for that sort of much vaunted creative class that we're all trying to attract.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I talked recently with one of the new city council members, and he talked about the same thing, the boomerang effect, and how if we can show the people that have left what changes have gone on, then we'll be sure to get them back. So.
Absolutely, and if you look around, we're already seeing evidence of that. So many of the great things that are happening here right now are being led by young professionals.
That's great.
Look at Strive. Greg Landsman came back to Cincinnati to do that work. Look at Partners for a Competitive Workforce, our workforce training arm. Ross Meyer is doing a phenomenal job with that.
That's great.
And there's so many more that I could cite.
I'm sure. Well, thank you so much for being here, and we wish you a lot of luck in this initiative.
You're welcome, Jamie. Thanks so much for having me.